All right. Hello, anybody that has joined early. Marvin B here, getting ready for the show, doing all the preset stuff. Let's move the camera over so I can look at it. And let's see. All right. Our guest is in the green room and we are ready to start. So here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Uncle Marv podcast. I am your host, Marvin B. Folks, I am streaming live from Fort Lauderdale, where it is a fantastic day. Once again, great weather. And what can I say? I love where I live. And I'm joined today by a good old friend of mine, Tom Clinkscale, from the days of Palm Beach Atlantic when it was a college. So, Tom, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Good to be here. I like living in Massachusetts where the weather isn't quite as sunny and warm all the time. But if you'll notice behind me, I have the beautiful picture of the greatest baseball park in America, Fenway Park.
That wasn't so great between, what was it, 1908 and 2004?
Yeah, no, there were not a lot of wins in terms of World Series, like none. Yes.
And what was that curse? The Yankee curse? The curse of the goat? No, the goat was Chicago.
No, the curse of the Bambino.
That being Bambino, yes.
Yeah, they traded Babe Ruth in 1918, and ever since then they lost their best pitcher and hitter.
Yeah. Well, he certainly turned it around. I think that was the year of Big Papi, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had that big turnaround with the Yankees and they were down 3-0 and came back 4 wins in a row, and the greatest comeback in sports history, and Big Papi was a big part of that.
Yep. And the biggest letdown from a Miami native, Alex Rodriguez.
Sure.
Who I thought should never have been a Yankee, but he was.
Yep. Right.
So, Tom, how have you been, man? It has been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long while. I think, for a matter of fact, I was looking through, my wife's going through some old pictures and giving little packaged pictures for all of our children. And there was a picture of Marv holding my now 30-year-old son as a baby in one of them. And I said, hey, there's Marvin right there. And that was, 30 plus years ago, or about 30 years ago on the dot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think it was about a year or two ago that, now forgive me, I may mess this up. Your daughter or somebody emailed me because you were having a special birthday that they wanted to do a bunch of surprises with. And she found me and said I was a good friend from college. And I responded and then never heard from her again.
Wow. Yeah, the aspirations of my kid that never got followed through on, obviously. Yeah, I didn't even know about that. So it was probably my daughter, although it could have been my son, Corbin, who again,
it was a daughter. I remember it was a female. And
only daughter then.
Okay. And I can't remember if she emailed or called. For some reason, I think it was a phone call. And then she was supposed to email me something so that I could send pictures or whatever. And
yeah. So I had no idea she even did it, and it never happened. So
the party never happened.
Yeah.
So no big celebration. I think it was, God, so it must have been 3 years ago if it was 50.
No, I'm 57.
Okay,
So it was definitely not that, but it might have been. I don't know what. I don't know what. Might have been maybe our. If it was a year, if it was
could have been an
5.
anniversary, maybe.
Yeah, it could have been an anniversary. We've been married 31 years, so could have been.
Okay, for the 30th,
Yep,
that
yep.
could have been it.
That might have been it. So we've been loving each other for 31 years here.
Yep, and the
Yep.
lovely Shannon
Yes, absolutely.
also attended Palm Beach Atlantic with us.
Right, absolutely. And yeah, she's a cancer survivor and went through a lot of chemo, and we walked through those years together. But yeah, Shannon's been a great wife and mom, and now she's my administrator at the church that we have here in Massachusetts.
So
Yeah,
another couple working together.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I get to sleep with the secretary. Yes.
I I do too.
Yeah. There you go. Right.
Can't code it any better than that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh my goodness. What else came up that I was oh, Dave what is his last name? Just it's
Miller.
Dave Miller.
Right.
Yes, found me on the Facebook.
Oh, did he really?
Yep.
Yeah, Dave was yeah, he and I stayed in touch. For matter of fact, when I was in seminary in Orlando, he lived with us um, for a couple of years when we had a couple of young kids, Corbin and Kayla, our two oldest, and Dave, even post Palm Beach Atlantic, was um, resided with us for a period of time. So we stayed more in touch, even post Palm Beach Atlantic for a while, because I was in the Orlando area at the time, and that's where he lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So I always tell the story that and I put it in the description for our show tonight that I escaped Cathy Dorm.
Yeah, I saw this.
Only to move to our house on, and I know somebody told me this and I keep forgetting, it was either Florida Street or Georgia Street.
Georgia.
Georgia Street.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And we thought it was, it was a great house.
Sure enough.
Thought it was a great neighborhood, just a block or two off of Dixie or whatever.
Yep.
And it was a neighborhood where you could watch your stolen TV walk down the street.
Yeah, I remember that moment very well. I've told that as a illustration while preaching even, but yeah, that was memorable. The thing that's really amazing about that is I was home when it happened. So I'm up in our rooms, which were up on the second floor, and the TV was there when I went in, went up to my room, came back down, TV was gone. And I was like, I just got robbed while I was home. And I don't know if you remember the details of what happened, but the
It was so what I remember is was his name Billy? Who was the other guy that lived with us?
Yeah, Bill Bond didn't live with us then.
Okay, was it then? Okay. So somebody who did came in and was like, I think I saw our TV walking down the street. All I could see is you going, it was right here.
Yeah. Then we went running around the neighborhood with bats trying to find the culprit, but never succeeded in recovering my TV.
Like good Christian boys, we were out for.
Yeah, we were out for vengeance. Enough vengeance is the Lord's. No way. I want some blood right now. Yeah, for a matter of fact, I thought you had borrowed the TV for like some sort of youth event or whatever. And I was like, hey, Marvin, did you take the, so it was bad. Anyway.
Yep. So those were the days. We were there for a year and a half or 2 years. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, until I got married, graduated and got married 2 days after graduation. So that's how long we were there. So I think you might have been out before that.
Yeah. I remember going out west
Yeah.
to a place, and I don't understand why I went so far west.
Right.
It was like 20 minutes to drive to school. And
well, having I can remember this. Another one was when Dave Anderson moved in with us. We had some, I think they were Mexican people living about 3 houses down, and they had a tendency to get a little lively when they had their parties.
Yep.
And they shot off a gun in their property, and he dove on the ground thinking we're getting shot at, and so our neighborhood was pretty wild. Never mind some other things that went on there that, like obviously drug dealing and etc. But
Yep, you didn't want to be walking about after dark,
no, it was not the place to be.
especially
Rent.
me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you certainly would have been visited for
Yeah.
sure. Yep.
Oh my goodness gracious! So those were the days. So Palm Beach Atlantic, which is now a university,
Hmm.
and pretty good place. Have you seen it lately?
Oh, probably been about 5 years.
Okay.
But yeah, the campus has
Oh, beautiful.
become amazing. Yeah, the complete, hell and heaven in terms of contrast from when we were there to now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I keep wanting to find somebody over there that will let me go and take a tour and document it
oh
and
wow.
that. So I think it's about time for that because I'm not going to be able to make it till our time capsule gets unearthed.
Right. And but it would be cool for you. You were the uh, president of our class, and I remember that. And so I have some great memories. I can remember when we determined that wasn't going to be smoking on campus, or the committee. You remember this?
Yes, I remember that.
I think you were interviewed by some Australian TV reporter that actually came because it was such an alarming thing to not have, smoking inside buildings, which is now like ubiquitous. It's like
Yeah,
everybody doesn't allow it.
yeah, everybody. We were the
Yeah.
first. We
You
were
were
the
the you
first school in the country.
Yeah, and you were the pioneer that led the way to what America became, which
Yep,
is no smoking indoors.
yep. So I got interviewed by them, and we had an article in the magazine Campus Life. I don't know if
Right.
you remember that magazine.
Yeah, sure enough. Yeah. Yeah. So I remember that. And yeah, it would be cool to see if you had actually, which you probably have some shots of old buildings and et cetera. So if you did a montage of before and after, if you took a tour of the campus, like what used to stand here this is where we played basketball, but now it's whatever. I don't even know what's there anymore. But
Oh no.
yeah,
Between so no smoking,
yeah,
bringing Coke onto campus.
yes,
I mean, these were the big student government initiatives of the day.
right. And I was thoroughly pleased because I was not a Pepsi guy. So anyway, that was a great move.
Uh,
So and now I'll advertise a little bit. So
there you go.
I still do it.
All right. Any representative of Coke want to sponsor the show? Let's-
There you go. I'll try again, please. All right.
Oh my goodness. You know what? It is amazing some memories that people have. There is stuff that I don't remember. And I I remember the smoking thing, but I don't remember a lot of the details. Like I did not remember that it was an Australian company that came and interviewed me.
Yeah, yeah. It was like a worldwide event. Like it was that big of a news event where that happened. Yep. And yeah, my relationship with Palm Beach Atlantic from let me think, 2001 to 2008, I was an adjunct professor at the Orlando campus for Palm Beach Atlantic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that in 2007, I won a Teacher of the Year award or whatever. So that in that year, I went down to the campus and saw it even at its advanced state in 2007. Never mind now with all the facilities and sports stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. How did I not know that?
Yeah, because who knows, Orlando campus, and maybe they didn't want anybody to know, and now everybody knows. Who knows?
That's true. I didn't know there was an Orlando campus.
Yep, still there.
Okay. Sorry, making notes here so that if I do get to document stuff, I can go back and verify.
Yeah, yeah. Tom's fantasy life, not really true. All right.
Oh my goodness gracious. So I did actually think that you were going to be a teacher, professor, or something like that. That just seemed like a natural thing for you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I've been told um, along the way as a pastor of local churches that I might be better suited at that I just filled out a report for a network of churches that we're a part of in North America, and one of the things is recommend a book to the network, that you've read. And I'm like, why do you guys do this? Because I read like a crazy amount of books. I said I probably read 30 since our last meeting, and you want me to recommend a book? That's just not fair. But yeah, I love teaching, and we actually have a university in our church that gives ministry degrees that's accredited and all that kind of stuff. So it's built into the leadership development in our church. So I get my teaching hat on and use my gifts in that area. So
All right. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the church? I know that when my research team was going out and looking up stuff, we found your pictures from your YouTube series.
oh yeah, yep.
I guess I'm assuming that came about because of COVID. And
Yeah, we weren't online at all, and we had been in the process of developing it and seeking grant money to actually have a decent set of equipment to do it without it being cheesy and et cetera. But when COVID hit and we all got shut down, and in the semi-communist state of Massachusetts, the restrictions were pretty rigid. So we said we got to get online fast. So our IT guys worked real diligently, and the first few of them were actually on a guy's camera that does video. We put it on a tripod, and I stood in the corner of our second location. We have a downtown church, and we filmed there until we could be in the building at our other location, and then we started doing, and we set up a camera on the wall and got better equipment and started doing it there. So you'd notice that the early YouTube incredible sermons that everybody should watch, the where the background was like the corner with the sign, and then it switched to church. So anyway, so yeah, COVID caused the online streaming, and we still have people that can't come out, older people that Massachusetts says you really shouldn't be in public places and all that kind of stuff. So it's beneficial for them.
all right. And it's called the chapel, but there's a longer name, right?
Yes. So historically, it was named Bethany Bible Chapel because a church in an adjacent town called Bethany Baptist Church started it 50 something years ago. So whenever anybody asked about our church, they say, "Oh, you're the church in Gardner." And I'd be like, "No, we're not the church in Gardner. We're the one in our town, Winchendon, Mass." And so growing tired and weary of that exchange, I said, we're going to brand ourselves differently, and we're going to get the Bethany Bible out and just call ourselves the chapel. So that's the evolution of how we came up with that name. And we found a good logo that kind of made it look better than the cheesy, just square letters. So that's it. And then we have a location called the Chapel Spring Street, and we have another one called the Chapel Downtown, which is very different forms of gathering as a church. So it's a Saturday evening service around a meal. The teaching is conversational. It's not like a preacher up front preaching a thing, and it's engaging a different population in our community. So anyway, that's where I'm sitting in the offices in our downtown church.
All right. So 3 locations makes it sound like a pretty big church.
Yeah, 2 locations.
2 locations.
Yep. Yeah, so not at all. We're not a big church. We're a church of a little over 100 people. We've had a couple bumps in the road recently, which is kind of classic. You'd probably smile a little bit that there's been conflict that's created stuff. But anyway,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
yeah. What are you talking about? Right. So, but we've got a big vision in a small church, and we are going to start churches like this one in downtown in similar towns. There's a lot of downtowns in Massachusetts, New Hampshire that are smaller 10 to 20,000 person towns that have these old mill town downtowns that are all used to be where the business and thriving happened, but isn't anymore.
Right.
And but the population of the town still centers around that area. So we're going to start churches like this one in those surrounding towns. So that's why we have the ministry school and leadership development. So we're training pastors to start those churches. And so Yeah, so you would think it's, a big church, multiple locations, but it's not.
Well, if you're doing what it sounds like, you're, spreading,
Yep,
and it doesn't all have to be under one roof.
right, and that's what we're doing. We're multiplying, and hopefully with other leaders leading those other locations down the road, which is at least the plan that we have anyway.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah,
So, I was trying to find, I had to rush tonight. I worked late, so
yeah.
I'm still at the office, so I didn't get to load all the stuff I had. I had found a couple of things I wanted to ask you about in terms of um, the music at the church, because it looked like you guys had some concerts or stuff that also aired on the YouTube. What else?
Nope. No, we have some pretty simple music. We got a guy that plays the guitar, um, and we have a couple other people that when he's traveling, they'll lead worship. But and then if we're out, if those people are all vacationing, which happens in a very big way in New England, because the summer months are when everybody travels and vacations because you get a lot of snow, and so people vacation during the summer and they're gone a lot. So we could have both of our music teams vacationing at the same time. Then we have to just go completely video. So
Mm.
maybe you were observing us.
Well, here's what happened.
Yeah.
So my research team must have messed up because there was a Bethany Gospel Chapel in
Yeah.
Worcester, Mass.
Yeah. That's definitely not us.
So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that was not you. And then I
No.
had the chapel downtown,
Yep.
and then Spring Street.
Right. That's us. Correct.
All right. Okay. So stop looking at bad notes.
Yes. that creating questions that I'll just say no.
Oh, hey, this ain't a professional podcast by all means.
No.
Tom Brokaw ain't here.
No. But it's good to be here, though, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually another aspect. If you wanted me to talk more about the work we're doing here in New England, we just developed a relationship with a group of like-minded churches that are going to collaborate together in a collective to walk alongside each other as small churches to start churches.
Mhm.
So that just started. It's called the North Central Collective. So we're in the north central part of Massachusetts. So we just wanted to name it the North, so we called it the North Central Collective, which is a group of like-minded churches that are committed to bringing the gospel presence to more places in order to reach more people through proclaiming the truth about Jesus. So we just launched that, and we actually have a meeting tomorrow of the leaders of those churches that are trying to work out the details of that. I'm the kind of the lead coach of that.
I was going to say, this sounds like something you would have put together.
This is something I took about 3 years of working with these guys to get to the place where we finally had all the leaders come to a big luncheon barbecue, and everybody. It was going to be a serve a barbecue, but we can't do that in Massachusetts, so we had to have everybody bring their own brown bag. But we have a large open space behind our Spring Street church with a pavilion, so we met there, and all the leaders came, and we just announced the beginning of this and had a Q&A, and our denominational leader was here just expressing his excitement around us working together and trying to bring other churches to work together to share more about Jesus.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that sounds right up your alley, because that's something, again, with, the teaching ability that I saw you having while at PBA, the ability that you had to find a way to bring people together and, you know, be kind to one another and all of these things. Something I wasn't really that good at.
Yeah. 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 The yeah, you were a good leader, though. I don't know if yeah, I'll affirm those aspects of my gifting and leadership, and um, and God's been gracious in seeing us bring this group together and beginning to do something that a lot of churches aren't willing to do, like work together to accomplish more, because churches can be territorial and worried about certain things that are really not something they ought to be concerned about. But anyway, so we've gotten past that, and we've written out covenant relationship rules that address those realities to make sure that we're operating in a way that honors God and advances the gospel as a group. So we've taken care of any of those kind of concerns, but pretty excited about that. I'm definitely a big thinker in a little world, and I'm always wanting to build. So if I'm not building, I'm restless. And so we're a part of a North American group of churches, again, that we work together at a national level to bring churches committed to the way of Christ and his apostles, and just really a restoring of the church to the principles that we see in the New Testament early on that have long been lost and forgotten, I think. But so we've been doing that here for a little over 10 years, and our church has gone through a great transformation and a lot of growth and maturity in people. So we're deep, but we're not numerically wide.
Doesn't have to be about the numbers.
No, it's not. And
Jesus started with 12.
that's right. And they multiplied a lot. For
Yep.
matter of fact, I would contend they never got big, and that's part of why they grew so well. But
Yeah. Reminds me of, I don't know why this always sticks with me. So I don't know if it was our junior year or maybe it was the beginning of the senior year. You got hooked on this book called The Master's Men. Do you remember that?
yeah, I do. Yeah, John MacArthur.
And for
Yeah.
some reason, I don't remember if we created a little study about that and went through chapter by chapter talking about, the different, disciples and their background and all of that. But it was, for some reason, that always sticks with me as, a way to remember, for some reason, churches today kind of mythologize the New Testament and deter from what it actually really was, and understanding the circumstances around the 12 disciples.
Sure.
And, thinking that these were all, holier than thou types of men, when really they were guys just like you and me. It would be the same, picking us out to go do stuff as it was to pick them out. They weren't the cleanest cut. They weren't the best speakers. They weren't the polished, they were just average Joes.
Right. With personality quirks, that whole study gets into the different likely ways that they related and the relationships. Yeah, I remember that study. There's a Greek word which I know you know a little bit, long forgotten maybe, but anyway, a term that is used to describe the disciples is the word we get idiots from today. It's idiotes, which means that they were not literate. They weren't these scholars and these superstars. They were the idiotes that were the ones that led and to this amazing movement called Christianity. So you're right. You're spot on. They weren't the superstars. They were just humble followers of Jesus, and that's what made them great.
Yeah. Just to tie things in here, I still have my Greek New Testament, and I still have the it's not the thesaurus. I've got my big the translator book.
Yeah.
There's 3 books I kept, and the lexicon and all that stuff, that if I ever decide to get back into it and to read the Greek and follow in the footsteps of the great Dr. Reed.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yep. And I will never forget that man. I won't share some of the stories that would, but I remember Dr. Reed, and for matter of fact, he was a little bit on the concerned side that my wife wanted to date me because he wasn't sure about my character. So he said to Shannon, who was in our Greek class, "You sure you want to be dating this dude?" And she's like, "Yeah, he's awesome," kind of thing. And he's like, "I don't know." So anyway, I'd like to have a conversation with him about that one day. So
Wow.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, that's that's a memory. And for matter of fact, I remember, and he's reached out to me recently, Darren Saley, who's an old friend of mine, and he was in Greek class, and he was a surfer, as was Dr. Reed. So they would surf before class at
Yep.
like 8 in the morning. And I can remember sitting next to Darren, and he would bend over and water would come rushing out his nose and wet his, Greek translation. At least that was his excuse for why he couldn't read his answers.
Yep.
And Dr. Reed had to say, oh, "Okay, that's all right, Darren," because he was the one surfing with him at 5:30 in the morning or whatever.
Yep. That was awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
and yeah, so he was a great guy though. He was a good teacher and helpful and getting us moving along in that world of Greek.
well, I'm going to put him on the list to find. So
Yeah.
he would be great to catch up with, because I don't know if you know this, but he followed me up to, well, he didn't follow me, but he was also up in the town of Wake Forest
Yeah. Yeah.
and taught Greek up there for, I don't know if he was there all 3 years that I was there, but as soon as I saw his name on the course syllabus, I signed up for his classes.
Sure. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I went off to the liberal world of Massachusetts to Gordon Conwell. I can remember some of the conservative students at Palm Beach Atlantic all worried about me going liberal because I was going to this, I think, really good seminary, Gordon Conwell, but and I didn't go to Southwestern or Northeastern, the Southern Baptist, bastions of
Mm-hmm.
conservatism.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I survived. I still love Jesus and His Word, and I'm not some liberal crazy dude like they were worried about. So their prayers were answered.
Well, I will take the title of liberal crazy dude for you. Well, although I'm not as liberal as people think, so
Yeah. Yeah.
it
The
should be interesting.
so
But
it was, and that, for matter of fact, when you were there in Wake Forest, that's where we visited, and you met my son and held him. And
yeah,
that's the picture I have in that dorm room or whatever.
I must not have that picture. You have to get me a copy.
Yeah, I'll have to have Shannon scan it and send it to you.
It's funny. So Kim, my wife. So whenever we do go through pictures, I have a couple of boxes that I've not organized, but I remember as we were going through them, there is probably 20, 25 pictures of me holding people's babies. And I don't know how that started, but that was one of those little traditions that every time somebody had a baby, had to have a picture with Uncle Marv.
Right.
And uh,
And well, I have pictures of you in my wedding because you were in my wedding too.
those I have.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yep, those I
So,
have in the gray suit.
yep. Yeah. Remember that well.
And I have a picture. I have volleyball pictures for some reason.
Yeah. Well, we had what my bachelor party was a barbecue at the church I worked at when we had sand volleyball court right on the campus because I had to have recreation and sports involved with anything I do. So that's what you've probably seen pictures of is us playing volleyball at the what's it called? Um, the party you have the day before the wedding, whatever that thing's called. So anyway, but we kept it cheap, barbecue, burgers and dogs, and played volleyball. And
Yeah.
my brothers went off to places that I don't visit, never have. I won't. That's what they did for during the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
So
each their own.
yeah.
So speaking of sports,
Yes.
so big into basketball when we were at PBA.
Yeah.
Did you continue to play?
I still play.
You still play?
Yeah. Yeah. For matter of fact, when I was in Orlando, I pastored in Apopka, Florida for 5 years. And no, 8 years. What am I saying? Whew, all right. And so I was in a men's league, and I had a major knee injury, which ended my season. But I was the I was the leading scorer in this men's league up until the point I ruptured my patellar tendon and was done for a year before I played again. But all my boys and my daughter played in high school. I coached them, I played with them, and I still go out and play with my youngest, who just got married. He's 20, and my other son is going to be 23, and we still play together. So
Nice,
I'm still
nice.
out there. Here's the old man, get out of his way, kind of thing. Don't hurt him.
Yeah, I had to retire before that happened, and so I was playing. I played in a couple of leagues. We had a lot of league tournaments down here, and I got to play with a lot of ex-college players.
Oh,
A
wow.
couple of semi, pro, like the D League. A couple of guys played with us, and
Yeah.
then we would have celebrities show up every now and then. Terry Porter from the Dolphins showed up. Um, oh, what is his name? Escaped me.
So that's some serious basketball you were playing in then.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
and it was great because it was one of the things that I have always hated about recreation is just playing for fun.
Yeah.
Which I mean it's good, but when you've played competitively all your life,
Yeah.
it's hard to play a game and not keep score.
Sure.
So that was a league where we could still do that, and Rip Hamilton is the name I was just thinking of.
Yeah.
He came and played with us a couple of nights, and my God, didn't look like much, but why he was in the pros.
Yeah. Well, I played, when I was living in Orlando in a Apopka area, we would go to the Winter Park Y, and Doc Rivers lived there. So I played with his son, like Doc, and
Okay,
who plays in the NBA now. And that kid was good. Like, so I know what you're saying. You wouldn't think they don't look like much. Then when you're standing there and they're 6 feet past you, and you're like, "How'd that happen?"
yeah,
You realize how good they are.
yep.
Yeah.
And so that was something, but it got to the point where I was one of the fastest guys for a long time.
Yeah.
And at age 48, they made me cover the 24-year-old. And I said, I got nothing left to prove.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at that point, I am not going to, I'm not going to work that hard to play anymore. Now, you had the knee injury, so I kind of skated through for a while, but I almost had my eye poked out.
Oh, wow. Like hospital visit kind of thing, or?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow. Well, that makes me think of a sports story. When I was candidating to be the pastor here, the next day I went golfing with my brother, and I had hit a drive on the edge of the tree line, not in the woods, but on the edge of the tree line. And there were these pine trees that had all the roots kind of going up on the surface. So I hit this really, I was trying to hit it like 240 yards. So I had a 3-iron out, and I hit it. It hit the root like 3 feet in front of me, ricocheted off the root and hit my eye.
Mm.
And I went blind for like a week, and I still have nerve damage. Like my pupil doesn't close anymore.
Oh.
So I've had a major eye injury, not maybe get pokes in my eyeballs hanging out, but.
Well, that's interesting because that's serious. Mine, they thought was serious. So a guy had got his thumb in there,
Yeah.
and they thought he had detached my retina.
Oh man.
So I had to wear a patch for a month.
Oh, did you really?
Yep.
Wow. So Captain Bly for a month until they were, so
Yeah.
everything kind of grew back in, and they didn't have to operate, or.
Funny, yeah. I mean, it was basically. So I remember on the floor, I'm sitting there and I'm screaming, because it hurt.
Yeah.
And so they're like, take your hand out so we can see. And it was like, all right. So I got my hand off, and they're like, okay, open your eye. And I'm like, it is open. And they're like, no, it's not.
Oh no.
So one of my buddies actually lived like 2 doors down from an eye specialist. So, because we played on Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and Saturday mornings.
Wow.
So it was like 8 o'clock at night. So they get me in the car and rush to this guy's house, 2 blocks down from my buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, he's got tools at his house, and he's, doing stuff, and he's, got the spoon and he's like, doing it was just whatever. And he's like, all right, you're good. Just show up at my office in the morning and
Yeah.
something. But
Yeah. I mean, I was blind because it was blood filled the whole eye. They couldn't even look at the retina and the back of my eye for like 5 days because there was so much blood in the eye.
oh
And
yeah,
then they did the examination and they're like, you're probably going to end up with some level of nerve damage. And the result was that my pupil doesn't close. So, when I go in the sun, I'm like squinting and that kind of thing.
people think you're winking at them.
Yeah. 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 I have ladies looking at me weird whenever I'm blinking at them. Yep.
Speaking
So
of
yeah,
movies,
so definitely involved with that. Coached the high school team in my boys went to, and love playing sports still.
all right. Just what I was going to say real quick, a shout out to Miss Newby, who was in the chat room saying hello there. So like to recognize people when they pop on
There you go.
show there. Their little 2 seconds of fame.
That's pretty exciting. Is that a friend of yours or someone from your past? If
Yeah. So Carla is from my high school days,
okay, yeah,
Satellite High School.
yeah,
And the satellite people seem to be the most active in the podcast.
sure.
Don't know
So
why.
so I don't know if anybody's asked this, but I'll be inappropriate and ask it,
Go right ahead.
or on the edge of like getting. So you've got to be getting some crap about Uncle Marv.
Actually, no.
None? Wow.
Why would that be?
Well, they got to take Uncle out of Uncle Ben's, and they got to take Uncle out of all that. So you're calling yourself Uncle Marv, and I'm surprised that somebody hasn't given you.
You know what? That's interesting. Nobody's ever brought that up, and I suspect that people would be afraid to.
Okay, and here I am throwing myself under the bus here, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it has been an interesting time,
Yeah.
and it's I don't even know what to say half the time because listen, things have been happening our entire lives, and there are things that I've shared with people off air in some private discussions
Sure.
that it is a strange time we're in, only because it's weird now to finally see people standing up and saying what is wrong
Sure.
that we've known to be wrong for years. But at the same time, I mean, my wife had a situation on the plane flying home yesterday. There are some people of color who are just ruining it for the rest of us.
Sure.
And it goes both ways. And, the things that are being done that make it like, why would you do that? We've made such great progress.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
It's without going into too much details. I'm conflicted because I came out and did a black man talking podcast. I've hosted a couple of just diversity groups, both personal and on the business side. But for the last month, I've just had to kind of back off because, I can't let my anger, come out.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And you've got some history, and I know some of it, and I understand it totally. And I admire you for your character amidst the evil that we're discussing in a indirect way. So
Right.
it's one of my points of admiration. I've actually talked about you in sermons around the whole idea of justice um, and how much my great love for you and knowing that you've suffered what no person should ever have suffered. And so anyway, you've been in there, along the way. So I don't know what year or day, but Marvin B's been mentioned by me on a couple occasions.
We're gonna have to talk about that off air because
Yeah,
that's interesting. Did
yeah,
not know that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Of course, now I'm thinking, okay, which events?
yeah, because there's not like the only one I know, right? Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you've got to scroll, I can roll it right out. I'm
Yep.
sure of that. Yeah. So
It was interesting. One of the things is, so, you mentioned, people giving me grief about Uncle Marv. I really never got that.
mm,
And, early on, it was always, you can't be an uncle. You don't have any, family to have, nieces or nephews. Well, now I do. And it's funny because they're all white. So when I'm out with them and, the kids are yelling, Uncle Marv, and seeing the looks on other people's faces. Um,
trying to
you know,
calculate it out and going, what?
yep.
Yeah,
A year ago, it would be funny to talk about.
yeah,
The last 6 months, not so much.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, yeah, everybody gets that. When you have an intimate relationship with somebody, even if you aren't biologically related, you get called uncle. Like we have close friends where their kids would call me Uncle Tom, but there's no biological relationship, but there just was an affinity in a relationship. And so I'm their uncle, but there's no relationship biologically there. So I,
Right.
and you being such a cool guy, I'm sure people, you know, call you Uncle Marv. Hey, there's Uncle Marv, and it isn't just merely biological because of who you are.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's interesting.
yeah.
So you brought up that topic. Is that something that you've addressed recently in the church? With talking about those situations, or were these like years ago that it just came up?
No, years ago, not recently. The rhetoric is so, right now to speak into it can be challenging, like so easily nuanced to be heard wrong. I've kind of withdrawn from addressing it publicly in the past few months, although I have ramped up my studies and reading certain books and histories that I hope will be helpful in addressing it when the intensity of the rhetoric isn't going to be distorted and misunderstood. I want to advance, righteousness and justice and goodness, and even in how I teach and lead people that I shepherd and people that might be looking in, and I felt it wise to not join in the. I don't know. I'm not a what is it? A fad kind of guy, like the thing you have to say, so you should say it. I want it to be genuine from me. Like I care about this issue, but I don't want to ever fall into it's the fad, it's the thing. I got to say it. Like, why weren't you saying it a year ago? Like, why weren't you saying it 3 years ago?
Right.
Now you must. Why? You know, that doesn't sound very genuine to me.
Yes, and I am on the opposite of that, where people who were, you know, and part of me wants to say insensitive or blind or didn't think it was a big deal, who now all of a sudden, you know, want to, politically correctly talk to me,
Yeah.
you know, and, like draw things out and, to a point of ad nauseum. I'm like, look, you didn't care about these things
Right.
before. And I can tell in the way that you're asking me, or the way you're telling me I need to be.
Yeah.
That's what annoys me. It's like, look, I've been black all my life.
Right.
you know, I've already dealt with these things all my life. This
Mm,
isn't a new revelation to me.
right.
And just because you're all of a sudden, woke to the situation, you're going to explain it to me?
Right.
I don't think so.
Right. No,
So,
it's been a fascinating history in my life, at least having such a good friend that is black and that I care about and love. That obviously we haven't been geographically close and been able to stay connected to, but that that even what I know and observed in minimal ways when we were together in college years ago, and in that community, conservative, mainly uh, Anglo white community. But anyway, uh, so I Um, so I've refrained. I appreciate you asking the question, but that's the reason why I've refrained. I don't want. I'm not a. I err on the side of not being following a fad. So when they were doing the 40 days of this and the prayer of that and whatever, I'm like, well, were we passionate about prayer before? Why do we need a book that so and so wrote to make us pray now? So anyway, that's been my personal soapbox, that I'm not going to do the fad thing and jump in on something, and the danger of it in terms of the rhetoric and being misunderstood.
Right.
Um, and if people know me, which people, if they're watching online, wouldn't really know me, and I'm speaking to an issue, it would resonate. They know my character, they know my history, they know my life, and then it would be understood in that context. And if it's not in that context, I could be easily misunderstood. So
Right.
I want to be.
Well, I can tell you this. One of the things that I have enjoyed about doing these shows is it gives me a chance to relive what has made things great with people. And, the people that I went to high school and college with, and even those years of darkness in Wake Forest,
Yeah.
you know, you know, me talking to you all these years later is really no different than you and I back then.
Right.
And, you know, the character that you have, and the fact that, when I talked to the sense of you being a teacher and you being a leader, that's exactly what you're doing, because that's who you were back then.
Mm-hmm.
That's, what I've always known you to be. You haven't, you know, you know, you may have, swung to the right or to the left as you go down the path, but the path has always been pretty straight.
Yeah.
If you look at, getting from point A to point B, a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
And wander aimlessly, and their character is all over the place. And one of the things that I've been finding out with people that I've talked with is, at least from my perspective, the people that I've been friends with, and people I didn't know I was friends with, because I'm finding out that they're, I'm hearing good things about the fact that, for the most part, I was a decent enough guy,
Yeah.
to, not have, I could, if this were a situation where I was an idiot all my life, people would be, just talking crap about me,
Yeah. Sure.
you know.
Yeah, we'd be seeing comments underneath, like whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Remember when you did this, you jerk?
yeah, 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 yeah. That was certainly not the case, for sure. And um, so it's I tell you, your mannerisms are killing me, man. You have the same facial mannerisms that you had. I mean, I'm flashing back to, like,
Get out, really.
80. Yeah, oh yeah, it's amazing. I'm sure I do too, but it's uh it's amazing. We carry, we're talking about character and commitment, and our giftings and abilities, and but even how we give expression physically. You have the little lip twitch thing, and it just make it so endearing. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm going, man, I love Marvin. It's Marvin, man. This is awesome. So
Yeah. It's, what's funny is there are times where I'm like, I'll go back and watch myself. I'm like, oh man, I got to
yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
But I've been doing it so long.
Right, I know. I had this early tick that I didn't know I had when I was up front speaking. So I had uh, uh, this spot on the back of my head. Most of my hair has turned gray now, and that's, why. I've been in ministry for 30 years. I ought to have, like, white. You know, I should be dead. No, um, is I had a little spot on the back of my head, and whenever I would get nervous, I'd put my hand back and I'd start itching it right in the middle of speaking. Like, I was at a conference I'm speaking at, and so one time, so Shannon's like, "Listen, you gotta stop these two ticks. Like, they're so annoying." And so anyway, at least I broke those two. I probably have like 50 others that she's willing to deal with, but that one was the worst. And another one was, I would always go to my nose, and she's like, "That's really disgusting. You really got to cut that one out." So so I broke those for the most part. And anyway, so, but we are, God has shaped us and made us who we are, um, and so we have these things that are pretty consistent. Even you, there it goes again. You're doing it again. I
Yep.
love it. So,
It's
and
what it is.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you a question, like so the impetus behind or the motivation behind the podcast was mainly just capturing some history of life and kind of a cathartic thing for you too,
So
or
it's a weird thing. So, you know, there were times, you know, when I left school and stuff. So I don't know if you remember, I wrote the paper um, for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And that was my way of, back before internet and Facebook and
yeah,
MySpace and all that stuff. It was a way to get the news out about what's been happening and sharing stories. And it was a way to kind of have a little community. Um, so I would do that. And when I when I got back to Florida and I kind of went into my cocoon
hmm,
and I met Kim and we would grow up and every now and then she's like, you need to do something. You need to get back in touch with these people. And it was always kind of like, okay. And I, you know, do one person here or there and then life would get in the way.
sure,
You'd get busy, family things and work. And, before you know it, 6 months have gone by and I talk to somebody and say, okay, we're going to stay in touch and we're going to, and then like 3 years had gone by and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't,
yep, yep,
didn't do what I said I was going to do. So, so I have been doing this podcast from the tech community for the last several years and it kind of has been growing in me. I'm like, I should do a personal podcast and could never really figure out, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it?
yep,
And of course, the podcast world is like, you've got to have this show and you've got to monetize it and you've got to, make a career out of podcasting. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do.
hmm,
I just want to find a way to make it a regular thing to talk with people and bringing the component of talking to people that not only would work with me, but something that I could share with everybody else about the friendships
yeah,
and, the history that we all share.
yeah, yeah,
And, there's going to be people that, the last show I did with Becky Brunette, she was at a point in her life where she was willing to talk about an event, that was hard.
hmm,
And it was a way for her to share and to, get some feelings out and, let people know the things that are happening in her life. Now, she would have done it, eventually. She would have, she shared some stuff on Facebook and all of that stuff. But, you know, I wanted to go deeper than Facebook,
hmm,
deeper than just putting something in a post that you don't get all the details, you don't get all the nuances.
sure,
And I thought, what better way than just to do a podcast and have people come on and we'll share stories,
yeah,
we'll share history, and if there's important announcements or whatever, that'll be the show.
that's awesome, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll probably have to do this to make sure I don't get chastised for missing out. So I have 4 kids. They're all awesome. My youngest just got married about 3 months ago, so he's a newlywed. Um, he's an emerging leader in our church, and his wife's awesome. And my next son in age is Calvin, and he's actually become a student in our ministry school here. And then my daughter Kayla, who lives in Orlando, and then my son Corbin lives in Orlando, and Corbin has a business there, and Kayla's a physical therapy assistant, and so I've been blessed with a great 4 kids. Each kid grew in size when Shannon was carrying them, and the youngest ended up being a little over 11 and a half pounds. And
Oof.
Shannon took some serious damage on from that one. She delivered them,
Mm.
and the nurses and doctors were all visiting the room, like, who's the lady who delivered the monster the other day and whatever. So anyway, I talk a little bit about my kids and the blessing of being able to raise them and um, still have them in our life, and so that's so I got that done. No
All right.
chastisement to come.
Well, it's funny because I was thinking, okay, for some reason, Calvin was the last one I knew about.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
obviously we've not stayed in touch enough for me to know that.
that's right. And I'm glad that we've connected in this way, and hopefully more than a promise that turns into 3 years passing, that we stay in touch and revisit even more things than an hour or so of a podcast that grants us. Because again, there you have a meaningful place deep in my life, in my heart, and you always have. And time and distance don't take that away. I haven't talked to Dave Miller in 10 years, but still, holds that place and that significance and importance in my life with Dave, and you amongst them, the good college buddies that were really important in my life.
Well, another reason for doing the show is there are people that have a place in our memories that we say, in our minds, we're going to go back and we're going to, rekindle or nurture or touch base, and we don't.
Yeah, I know.
And this was a way for me to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this, and it's going to be a concerted effort to do that. And it's funny. I'm trying, not to be pushy, so I don't, it's not like I've got a list and I'm just, knocking them out. It does still have to be a little bit organic. It has to be, the right time for everybody. And some people aren't going to come on. Some people don't feel comfortable doing this.
Yeah, yeah,
But even so, we're still going to get the conversations going. And part of it too is one of the things so Kim came along, I don't want to say late in life. It wasn't that late, but, she didn't know me through, high school, college, grad school.
right.
She met me, I was 25, 24 when I met her.
Wow.
And she didn't move down to Florida, until I was 30. So there's a big chunk of my life that she's only heard about.
Yep, sure
And,
enough.
she hears the stories and then she'll look at me and go, really? That was you?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
So now she gets to see the characters that are part of the story.
right. And so that's another thing that I wanted to do was, for me to be able to tell people what place they hold in my memory. And in some sense for people to tell me, because I'll get snippets here and there.
Yeah.
And, some of them are just, funny stories that, Marvin B did this for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's something so that she will know what I did, because I did a lot, between sports and student government and junior achievement. I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot of good memories there.
Sure enough. Definitely. I can remember you going off on those junior achievement things that I had no inkling about what it was, but I discovered a little bit about it, through knowing you were involved with that. So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah, actually, I'm going to be down in Florida next week. I'm going to visit my son and daughter in Orlando area, so I'll be visiting your state.
So normally I would say, first of all, you have to let me know because we'll have to make a visit, but we're still idiots down here in Florida with the coronavirus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, you don't want to be up here. I can tell you that. It's idiots times 10 up here. So, and kind of shepherding and guiding people on, the varying ends of the spectrum on how you deal with it. Like, someone could ask me, "Hey, Pastor, why weren't you wearing a mask on that podcast?" I was like, "I was in my office by myself. I mean, I got it over here on my side." But anyway, so it's been a pretty unique period of time, to say the least, and traveling, and then I'll have to take a test, so I don't have to quarantine when I get back, because you guys are one of the hotspot states that Massachusetts has identified, and so
I'm surprised they're letting you travel to Florida.
yeah, well, you have to sign a form, and when I come back in, the stormtroopers are probably going to come and surround me or whatever. But we'll see how it goes. Yeah. the so your shirt is your business, right?
Yes, it is.
How's
So
that going for you? Your business is flourishing, I hope, and
business is good.
yeah,
Um, you know, for some reason, I got lucky in choosing a business that right now everybody needs their computer.
yeah. There you
And
go.
and I did a focus on the business side of they've definitely got to have their computers.
Sure.
If people can't work, they can't bill. So that has been good. Most of my clients are law firms
Okay.
and attorneys, regardless of what their practice is, they consider themselves essential. So they all worked, even though
Nice.
some of them probably shouldn't have. So they worked. I got paid. So that
Nice.
was really good for us. In fact, so my bank is Wells Fargo,
Mhm.
and they called today,
Yeah.
and I don't understand this. This is the second time they've called to ask if we need anything, and they just wanted to make sure that they were there for us and wanted to see how we were doing during the COVID. And I said, we're doing just fine.
Yeah.
Like, are you sure? Do you not need a PPP? Do you not need? I'm like, no. I run my business good enough that hopefully I'll never need to call you guys when we need money.
Right. Sure enough. Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned attorneys and law firms. So this guy I met recently, he's a writer, and he writes blogs and ghost writes for different things. So mainly, most of his business is he writes blogs for attorneys as a ghost writer, which I was like, you got to be kidding me! Like, you write them, and the attorney puts them on his blog site like he wrote them. I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
even know it existed. So he's
that
like, yeah, I said, I just finished up a year-long contract with, he didn't name the law firm, but I was like, that's cracking me up.
yeah, big business. It's basically it's a marketing thing that started where they would supply the content material. So half the posts on Facebook, half those advertisements, half the things, they're all created content by somebody else.
Right. Not the person that's the face of the law firm or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, I knew there were ghostwriters in books, like, authors that uh, aren't really the authors. Their main framework or ideas, and then a ghostwriter actually fills in the framework, and
Yeah.
you never know it.
You could have a weekly, blog written for you, I'm sure.
Right. I know. Hey, what are you saying? I can't do it? No. Yeah.
You can't read 30 books a month and blog.
Right. I know. I know. I gotta shift to the writing side of things because I do want to produce instead of read all the time. But so that'll be the next time I'll motivate myself, and I'll come back on and share hopefully the completion of a book I've written. Um, so
Did you start to write a book at PBA?
I've started about 25 books. Yeah. And I never, I mean, it's been revealing, actually. It's so as you grow and mature and get more honest with some of the weaknesses that you carry in life that are present, but you just never really taken notice of, and maybe intentionally ignored. One of them for me has always been, if I write it, I can be criticized, and just a fear that I had, that I didn't realize how um, strong it was, uh, until, what was it? It was fairly recent. I can't even remember the circumstances that surrounded it, but it was helpful for me to realize um, what I learned about myself in order to kind of get past this, putting it down on paper, the ideas, in order for you to say, well, that's a bunch of crap or whatever. So uh, it was a good moment for me, so I can get past that. But yeah, I've gotten the files, actually. I have interviews of people in college that I was researching for writing book. I still have files of it from Palm Beach Atlantic.
No.
Yeah.
So why don't you just take all of that,
Yeah.
put them together into a book, and just name it, 25 Great Beginnings or something.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, maybe I can make some money doing that. Yeah, it's a good idea. Let me try that. Yeah. So I actually, it's interesting because this most recent book that I've actually developed more than any other had a lady that was a English professor at a private school here. She said she'd edit my books, and so I'd never been involved in that process of critique with an editor because I like to think of myself as somebody that's articulate and can write down things that are just succinct and profound and um, you know Tom's fantasy world. But so anyway, I wrote an intro and I had a particular word that I really liked, and then I sent it to her, and she critiqued it. Like the one thing that she critiqued that I love most, she's like, "That's the wrong word." And we had a, in the message side of the Google Docs, we're having this back and forth on why I chose the word, and she goes, "It's not the right word," and she explained why, and it was pretty funny. So, uh, but I, but um, I, I ended up agreeing with her. I humbled myself to her editorial skills and changed the word.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was funny. I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier. Well, not that I needed to, but so somebody we know is big into writing, and I'm trying to find who it is. And she actually does a blog about writing, or not a blog, a podcast.
Oh, really?
So I'll have to go find that and get back to you. That was,
Yeah, that'd be great.
yep, somebody from PBA.
Really?
Yep.
Because I know like Jennifer Rothschild, she's written books um, and a number of other people that have ended up getting published. Um, so, but it's not her. I know that.
No, that this was somebody else. And Jennifer, I actually spoke to Phil. Phil's supposed to be coming on, Phil
Great.
Rothschild, at some point, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he'll market his wife because that's his job. I mean,
well, I mean, come on, those, they're real, celebrities in a sense.
yeah, yeah.
To come on the Uncle Marv show. Come on, really.
No doubt about it.
I'm sure
Yeah.
they're thinking, okay, he can't pay us, so
Yeah, Phil is he's another person that's great memory. I worked at the student center and he was the guy that ran that whole thing and um, really good guy.
yeah.
That's how I knew him, mainly through that.
So here's a weird Phil story.
Yeah.
So the first year I went to PBA, Phil was there in leadership, and let's see, that was the year. So Hal Haller was our president the first year. I think I was vice president or
Yep.
something. When I went back to Satellite Beach, Phil Rothschild was a youth pastor at Palm Bay, or one of the churches, Central Baptist, in our area, and we had to play softball against him that summer.
Oh boy.
And I was like, wow. And he was like from that area, and I did not know that.
And he was a great baseball player at Palm Beach Atlantic too. So
Yep.
he was probably a good softball player, I would imagine.
He was he was the coach, so he couldn't
Oh,
play.
all right. Okay, yeah. I thought he was playing like in a men's league or something like that. Yeah.
No, yeah, that. So, but no, he was the coach of the youth group. And
yes, I've tried to actually. You mentioned Hal. I've tried to connect with him because he was up here in the Northeast a little bit, um, working with the Southern Baptist Convention, but never happened. So he was like in New York, 3-4 hours away, and that distance made it enough for us to never make the connection. But I tried to get connect because I remember him and I debating theological matters at the student center desk. He would come with his dad's writings on a particular subject. I won't bring up that particular one, but he was wrong and I was right, and I was trying to convince him, and it was pretty fun. So we revisited that when we connected. I was like, "Hal, you remember bringing those Manila files with all your dad's, teachings?" Yeah, I remember that. So
yeah, I probably didn't participate in any of that because I was busy playing pool and ping pong.
right. Yeah, that was and I was at the desk passing out the paddles.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's where Shannon discovered me, my wife. She worked there too, and she was like, "Oh, I like that guy," and that's how it all began, right there at the student center. So,
That's how it began. I was trying to remember.
yeah, there's other parts of the story. She tells the story like way more grandiose than I ever would in terms of, who I was. I was a baseball player, and I was older than a lot of you guys. So I was like 3 years before I got to college. So she describes me, I think, again in a larger than life way about life on the campus at Palm Beach Atlantic.
You were the old man on campus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So basically kept us in line.
yeah,
And like, you can't do that. Why not? Trust me.
yeah, right. And yeah, I
I was,
loved it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you were. I was your age once. Trust me.
Yeah, yeah. And I was
So,
only 3 years older, right? I know.
well, I'll have to get her on. I know she's never really been a big speaker, but maybe we'll get her on here and share a story or two.
Oh, Shannon?
Yeah.
That would be a work. But yeah, I think I'll ask her. Yeah. She'll,
Doesn't have
I
to be
think,
long. Just a quick appearance.
yeah,
You
she'll
can even
probably do.
you can even appear by phone. I can bring in phone interviews.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she wouldn't mind being on. I don't think she'd probably talk about her, uh, uh, experience of being diagnosed with cancer and getting treated, and how it actually drew her closer in her relationship with God. That event and that circumstance that we walked through, that happened when we were down in Orlando, and but so I'm sure that would be part of it. And then of course she'll celebrate all her wonderful kids and things like that. You'll have to probably probe to get anything good about me in there, but
So I was just thinking that there's another person that I've got lined up that is. I have to make sure I get my facts straight. So there's several cancer stories that. So I'm thinking maybe I can just bring them all on together and kind of ease the burden for them to share.
sure.
And there'll be some camaraderie and some supporting stories with each other.
Yeah, when we got the diagnosis, it was in Altamont Springs, Florida, and the doctor was absolutely bedside manner, worst doctor in the history of bedside manner. So they walk in and they're like, "So I think you need to start getting some things in order." So that's the phrase that means what?
Wow.
Yeah, like say goodbye to the planet Earth, right? So I was like, I went white, sheet white. I'm like, what? And so yeah, this could be this, and it'll lead to this, and usually these cancers are this, and I was like, oh my word. And then so then we go to the oncologist, and he's like, oh, we got this cancer down. You're going to outlive me. And I was like, I'm going back to that doctor. I mean, like, how in the world could that person say what they did when this oncologist is like, we've got some great treatment for this type of cancer that you have, and right first thing out of his mouth is, I'm 20 years older than you, and you're going to far outdistance me, and you're going to live longer than me. And so anyway, it was good news, 3 years of treatment, but nonetheless, he was right. Um, she's been 10 years out, and um, part of the reason why we even moved here was to go to Dana-Farber, Brigham and Women's Hospital, which is one of the leading research cancer centers connected with Harvard and all that kind of stuff. So Shannon was in a test group and all that kind of stuff for the particular protein specific cancer treatment that they were using at the time, and it was successful. So
All right. Well, definitely have to get her on and share that story, because that's to be scared at the beginning, and then to have the wherewithal to have somebody the right way approach it and say, look, you're going to be fine.
right, yeah, it's interesting to process out with our adult children how they experienced as younger kids, because it was in 2000, end of
I know.
2007, 2008, so they were a lot younger, and
And
their experience of their mom.
I remember that, and I remember reading or hearing that you guys, it wasn't that you got the diagnosis within hours. It's that you went a few days
Yep,
thinking that was going to be it.
right, we did, and it was scary, and the kids were a part of that. Even having their mom going into the hospital for chemo treatments. The whole big C word and chemo and everything still has a stigma to it that, for a kid trying to process it was really amazing. So having conversations 10 years after how our kids were frightened and observed, how we lived in the midst of it all, it was pretty cool to hear how they experienced it from, the view of the eyes of a child, with a suffering parent. So,
Hmm.
and what God again did to sustain Shannon and her faith, and they observed that, and it was meaningful for them, and they're coming to be followers of Jesus as well. Um, so anyway, yeah, if she would be willing, I'll poke at her and send her an email. And
She's on the list.
there you go.
So we get that going. All righty, my friend. Well, we've gone quite a while here.
Yes, we
You were
have.
afraid we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
Yeah, it doesn't take much when you have good friendships.
Yeah. And so actually it's in the chat. So we had Uli Bernier also pipe in so this is the thing that I like about these shows, that, Uli and Carla are people from my high school.
Yeah.
And you and I were college, and we can share stories, and people are tuning in. And, Carla just put up a thing saying amazing. And as you were talking about Shannon,
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So, the stories transcend.
That's right.
So, that's another thing. I hope that as this gets going, I wasn't sure if this was going to be like a 1-year mission or a 5-year mission, but obviously we'll go as far as people will take it.
Sure. That's great. Well, you got a bunch of friends, so it can go a long time.
Well, if they all say yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, thanks for the invite and for the reconnect. It means a lot.
All right, sir. And we'll talk off air about a couple of things, and then we'll set something else up and start working on Shannon.
Sounds good.
All right. So thank you all for watching and listening. And be sure to head over to unclemarv.com and pay attention to the post there. You'll see past episodes that you can listen to. If you want to be alerted anytime that we do these shows, be sure to head over to the Uncle Marv on Facebook page or to Uncle Marv on YouTube and just like the pages, and you'll be alerted whenever we do a live show, and you'll be alerted from unclemarv.com through any of your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, all those things. So anytime there's an audible release of a podcast, you'll get that as well. So I want to say thank you to Tom, my good friend from Georgia Avenue.
Yep.
Remembering that finally, Georgia Avenue.
Yeah.
Where you can watch your TV walk down the street. That's going to do it for this episode, folks. And until next time, holla.